August 12, 2011, the first apartment on Lambert Avenue in the Hounslow neighborhood of London remains the subject of an ongoing investigation. The bodies of two Vass and Alice Adams were found 48 hours ago. A patrol officer is stationed at the entrance, and the front door is locked to perform more tests. The investigative team goes back to the crime scene. The door won't move. Even after an officer puts a key into the lock from the inside, it is blocked off. There is faint, incoherent muttering and the sound of heavy objects shifting. Police barged in. Investigators find a man in the bedroom on the same bed where Tibor's body was previously discovered. The sole suspect is a 31-year-old hotel manager named Attila Ban. He has a pair of scissors in his hands and is completely naked. Medical personnel will later categorize the visible cuts on his neck and forearms as superficial indicators of self-harm. Ban's speech is jumbled and hardly comprehensible due to his extreme drunkenness after being arrested. The suspect is escorted to a hospital. Investigators record a concerning anomaly while medical professionals tend to his injuries. No one had entered or left the building since the investigation started. According to building security reports and security camera footage, there is only one way out, and the windows are locked. It turns out that the man the police had been looking for 48 hours throughout the city had been inside the apartment the entire time as forensic experts were recording the bodies and gathering biological evidence. He had actually been in the room August 10, 2011, at the Radisson and Blue Edwardian Hotel, which is close to Heathrow International Airport. The morning starts according to a rigid schedule. Here, staff schedules are directly linked to the arrivals and departures of flights, and any delay is regarded as a major protocol violation. 3 workers are scheduled to start their shift at 7 o'clock a.m. The reception desks are still empty despite senior receptionist Attila Ban and his co-workers Tibor, Vass and Alice Adams, who are both originally from the same nation as Ban. The hotel manager observes that the whole team is not present. Internal documents show that Attila Ban had been there longer than the others and was known for her attention to detail. In 2010, he was even named Employee of the Year. Both Alice Adams, who had just joined the team 3 weeks prior, and Tibor, who had been employed at the hotel for roughly a year, were characterized as dependable and responsible employees. Management is concerned because 3 important employees who all lived in the same neighborhood failed to show up for work at the same time. The manager makes several attempts to contact them on their personal cell phones during the first hour. No one answers any of the calls. By 8 o'clock a.m., hotel management decides to send someone to check on them at their home after realizing how unusual the situation is in order to shorten their commute to the airport. Attila Ban and Tibor Vass shared a company apartment number 1 in a building on Lambert Avenue provided by the hotel, even though Alice Adams lived about 6 miles away. She had recently been spending a lot of time with her co-workers. Hotel staff find the apartment's front door unlocked when they get to the address, with the curtains drawn tightly over the windows. The interior is utterly silent. No one responds when calls are made to the residents. The manager then makes contact with emergency services in a matter of minutes. Police officers show up on Lambert Avenue as soon as they enter. They detect a strong smell and indications of chaos in the foyer. A visual inspection of the apartment's first few feet reveals dark brown stains on the floor that extend farther into the rooms. The official investigation of the scene is started by the officers August 10, 2011. Around 8:30 a.m., the Lambert Avenue apartment's living room is thoroughly examined by the investigative team. The first body is found in the middle of the room on the carpet. Alice Adams is 20 years old. She still has on her sneakers and is fully clothed in her regular attire. Her body's posture points to an abrupt collapse. In this area of the room, there are no obvious indications of active resistance. There are no broken items or overturned heavy furniture in the area. Forensic experts are instantly drawn to one detail. A decorative pillow that was taken from the couch completely covers her face. There are noticeable bloodstains on the pillow. Officers record numerous injuries to the neck and upper torso when they carefully lifted. Alice Adams was stabbed 22 times, according to a subsequent forensic investigation. The possibility that they were unintentional injuries sustained during an attempt at self-defense is ruled out, because the majority of them were delivered with significant force and concentrated around critical areas. By noting the rigor mortis stage, the medical examiner enables investigators to determine that the death occurred in late evening or at some point during the previous night. Several empty alcohol bottles are strewn all over the living room, indicating that there had been a gathering there earlier, with the exception of the objects right next to where the body fell. The glasses and leftover food on the table seem to be mostly undisturbed. According to the evidence, the attack occurred unexpectedly at a time when the victim was not anticipating any hostility. Biological samples are taken from Alice's clothes and the pillow's surface by forensic experts. Additionally, there are bloodstains on the floor of the living room, creating a trail that leads to the bedroom and hallway. Officers observed that the weapon used in the crime is not visible anywhere in the apartment at this point in the investigation. Even though Attila Ban's personal items, such as his jacket and documents, are still hanging on the rack in the hallway, he is still nowhere to be found. The second room, where the blood trail is obviously still present, is examined by the police next. Clean white sheets, suspicious crime scene detail. August 10, 2011. In the morning, Tibor Vass's bedroom is entered by a second group of forensic experts. They find the young man's body on the bed. Tibor, in contrast to Alice Adams, is naked. Experts subsequently describe his body's position as abnormal for the moment of death. He spreads his legs apart and draws them up toward his stomach, on the region of his heart on his chest. 2 deep stab wounds are found by investigators. A subsequent medical examination verifies that the damage to the heart muscle caused instantaneous death. Experts find a significant logical contradiction in the bedroom during the initial assessment. There is hardly any blood on the mattress or bedding, despite the seriousness of Tibor's injuries. For a location where a person with heart-piercing wounds was discovered, the white sheets seem remarkably clean. Investigators come to a crucial conclusion as a result. The crime was not committed in the bedroom. After Tibor's heart had already stopped beating, his body had been transported there. Investigators discover a stack of clothes in the bedroom's corner. Upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that these are the same outfits that witnesses had observed Tibor wearing at the event the previous evening. The clothes were not taken off in the customary manner, with a knife or pair of scissors. It had been roughly divided and thrown away. The fabric itself is heavily stained with blood and has cuts that correspond to the wounds on Tibor's body. The investigative theory states that the perpetrator took of the victim's clothes in a different area of the apartment, cleaned the body in what appeared to be an effort to hide evidence of a struggle, and only then placed it on the bed. Attila Ban, who shared the room with Tibor, also had several personal items and a few empty bottles strewn throughout. Ban's bank cards and documents are still visible, but his cell phone has vanished entirely. Investigators have a crucial lead thanks to this detail. In the hopes that the phone's activity could provide the missing man's location, detectives ask for the device's call and signal records. On the evening of August 9th, surveillance cameras placed at the building's entrance capture Attila Ban entering the house, but there is no footage of him leaving. A few years prior to the tragic events in London, Attila Ban and Tibor Vass had a history. Budapest is where Tibor was born. He took on the role of primary caregiver for his mother and younger sister following the unexpected death of his father in 2007. Tibor, a talented pianist, once aspired to pursue a career in music. However, he was forced to look for work overseas due to financial difficulties. Tibor, then 19 years old, relocated to the UK in July 2010 and started working at the Risen Blue Edwardian Hotel. Tibor met 31-year-old Attila Ban there, who was already known for being a model employee. Attila took the young man from his native country under his wing, assisting him in learning the language and acclimating to life in a foreign nation. Their relationship seemed to be a close friendship from the outside. Tibor learned the specifics of the work from Attila, and soon the two were practically inseparable. In order to reduce rent and provide more financial support to his family in Hungary, Ban eventually recommended that Tibor move into his company apartment on Lambert Avenue. Attila seemed like the ideal mentor to everyone around them. However, a much more complex psychological dynamic was developing behind his calm and courteous exterior. Co-workers would later remember that Ban had an unusually strong, almost possessive bond with the younger co-worker. He insisted that they work the same shifts and spend their free time together in an attempt to exert control over almost every aspect of Tibor's life. In many respects, Attila gave his friend a closed world in which he continued to be Tibor's closest friend and the only legitimate authority figure. As long as Tibor remained unmarried and mostly reliant on his mentor, this seclusion was effective. However, Tibor, who exuded charm and a laid-back demeanor, progressively started growing his social circle. Attila was quietly annoyed by that change. In the summer of 2011, the equilibrium inside apartment number 1 started to change. 2 significant events in Tibor's life took place at that time. He first passed the entrance exams for a Budapest university. Second, he started expressing interest in a new hotel employee. When taken as a whole, Those events increased the likelihood that Tibor would soon depart London and move outside of AR authority. 3 weeks prior to the tragedy, in July 2011, the third person in this series of events started to arrive. Alice Adams, 20, began her career as a receptionist at the risen Blue Edwardian Hotel. She loved music, lived with her parents about 6 miles away from the office, and made friends with the staff right away. Hotel staff testified that Alice and Tor became close almost instantly. They were related by their musical backgrounds in addition to their age and occupation. They were both gifted musicians. According to co-workers, their relationship grew rapidly. Tibor started altering his schedule after spending almost all of his free time with Attila Ban up until that point. Alice and Tibor quickly became inseparable, according to statements gathered during the investigation. Attila Ban, 31, started acting differently during that time. Subsequently, investigators came to the conclusion that he began exhibiting overt indications of compulsive control over the younger co-worker during a corporate team building exercise. One of the case's major incidents took place. Witnesses stated that after witnessing Tibor taking a selfie with co-workers without inviting him into the picture, Attila abruptly became enraged. Attila consistently insisted on living together and working the same shifts, according to testimony given in court. Officially, he described it as a way to streamline their schedules and save money, but many colleagues saw it as a means of separating Tibor from the rest of the team. Investigators discovered no proof that Tibor ever fostered expectations regarding Attila Ban's non-traditional orientation or his potential romantic feelings for Vass. Conversely, Alice and Tor started dating a few days prior to the final events. Suddenly, Attila Ban, who was Tibor's roommate and their immediate supervisor, found himself observing their relationship all the time. The prosecution concluded that this circumstance laid the groundwork for a protracted dispute driven by jealousy. The dynamics within this triangle reached a tipping point 2 weeks prior to the events in the Lambert Avenue apartment. Vass made his decision to leave the UK known to hotel management and his co-workers. His acceptance to the University of Budapest was the cause. Tibor would unavoidably return to Hungary by the end of August after passing the competitive entrance process on his second try in 2011. This news turned into a destabilizing factor for Attila Ban. A hotel administrator testified that Ban was the only one who did not publicly celebrate his friend's accomplishment. Attila started consuming alcohol more frequently after work shifts during this time. According to investigative records, his position as the senior protector and mentor was becoming meaningless. In addition to beginning a romantic relationship with Alice, Tibor intended to leave the life they had created together in London. Tibor was supposed to depart in the middle of August. A farewell party was scheduled for August 9, 2011, at apartment number 1 on Lambert Avenue to commemorate the event. Attila Ban, a senior co-worker and Tibor's roommate, assumed some of the organizational duties. Investigators claim that Ban did not view Tibor's impending departure as a friend's career advancement. Rather, he allegedly perceived it as a personal betrayal and the ultimate loss of control over a person he had become very attached to. Additionally, Alice Adams had intended to stay at the Lambert Avenue apartment that evening and the following night. She texted her mother earlier that day to let her know about those plans. Attila Ban's actions on August 9th, the day of the event, seemed out of the ordinary. He posted a brief message on Facebook at 6:00 p.m. As guests were starting to arrive, "I wish this nightmare would end." When friends saw the post, they commented to ask what was wrong, but Ban never answered. That evening, a number of hotel staff members were present at the event. Significant amounts of alcohol were consumed, but witness accounts state that there was no overt hostility between Tibor and Alice while the guests were there. The meeting went on until about midnight. The final invited guests depart the Lambert Avenue apartment at midnight on August 9, 2011. There are still 3 people inside: Alice Adams, Vass, and Attila Ban. All 3 were under the influence of alcohol, according to forensic results. Since there were no direct witnesses to what transpired behind closed doors, investigators used forensic analysis and indirect evidence to reconstruct the subsequent events. The existence of both men's DNA on Alice Adams's body was one significant fact discovered during the 2012 court proceedings. Attila Ban acknowledged in court that there had been an intimate encounter. He claimed that after the guests had departed, the interaction took place with everyone's consent. The assertion that there had been a brief, Consensual, intimate interaction involving all three people was indirectly supported by the forensic examination's failure to find indications of resistance during that particular time. But soon after, there was a significant shift in the apartment's atmosphere. The prosecution claims that Attila Ban became aware that Alice had emerged as Tibor's main romantic partner following this encounter. According to case files, Ban had grown extremely resentful of the young woman because he thought she was stealing his friend. About 1 o'clock a.m. neighbors in the apartment below reported hearing loud noises that sounded like a heavy object falling in the living room on August 10th, along with muffled thuds. They dismissed the noises at the time as a result of the earlier evening gathering. The first person to die was Alice Adams. The attack occurred abruptly, most likely in the hallway or close to the living room entrance, according to the medical examiner's report. There were 20 stab wounds on her body, the majority of which were in the neck and chest. Then Attila Ban positioned herself in the middle of the room and placed a pillow over her face. Investigators concluded that Tibor Vass was the next victim of the assault. There were only 2 wounds on the young man's body, but they were both delivered precisely to the heart region, killing him right away. Police launched a massive search for Attila Ban on August 10, 2011, after finding the bodies in the apartment on Lambert Avenue. Initially, detectives looked at video from security cameras placed at the residential complex's entrances and exits, as well as cameras in the surrounding streets and around Heathrow Airport's terminals. The outcomes were surprising. Attila's entry into the building the previous evening was clearly captured by the cameras, but there was no footage of him exiting through any of the exits. There were no indications of forced entry or escape when police examined all potential escape routes, including windows and emergency doors. Ban's cell phone was still in the apartment. However, the device was momentarily detected by the system as turning on. Before the phone was turned off once more, investigators were unable to pinpoint the precise location of the signal, which originated from the coverage area of the closest cell tower serving the Lambert Avenue neighborhood. There was no activity in Ban's bank accounts either. Forensic experts spent 2 full days at the crime scene. A patrol officer was stationed at the entrance, and the apartment remained closed off during that period. The floors, walls, and ceiling were all thoroughly inspected by evidence technicians. On the evening of August 10th, the bodies were taken away for an autopsy. Experts closely examined the furniture for signs of DNA and blood. Large pieces of furniture, like couches and beds, were not disassembled or cut open during the first 48 hours. Per protocol, potential biological evidence that might still be present on the surface should not be disturbed, according to investigators. Investigators made contact with Attila Ban's friends in London and his relatives in Hungary. Nobody knew where he was. Press speculation soon started to surface. According to some reports, the perpetrator may have committed suicide in a nearby wooded area. The lead investigator maintained that Ban could not have left the building without being noticed, despite the belief of others that he could have escaped by using his knowledge of airport operations near Heathrow. The case appeared to come to a standstill. 2 bodies and a bedroom that at first glance seemed unusually clean had been left behind by the main suspect, who had apparently disappeared from a locked and guarded building. Investigators would later piece together what had happened several hours prior to the hotel manager finding the apartment's open door. About 1 o'clock a.m., Attila Ban launched the initial assault on August 10th. Alice Adams sustained several knife wounds while she was in the hallway. The majority of the 20 injuries were concentrated in the neck and chest region, according to forensic analysis. Then Ban positioned herself in the middle of the living room and put a pillow over her face. Prosecutors speculate that he may have done this to avoid seeing the victim's face. Torvus was the next target. Due to his extreme inebriation, the young man was unable to protect himself. Immediate death was the consequence of 2 precise blows to the heart region. Attila then started tampering with the crime scene. He carried Tyr into the restroom, where he meticulously cleaned the body to get rid of blood and biological traces. After that, he brought the body back to the bedroom and laid his friend down on the bed in a particular position that experts would later characterize as ritualistic. Tibor's severed clothing was thrown into the room's corner. Attila stayed inside the building after handling the bodies. He am while still living in the same apartment as the deceased. He made his last social media post. Rather than running away, he started carefully setting up a hiding place inside the apartment. He was aware that multiple workers missing from work would raise suspicions and prompt a search. He intended to use the apartment as a covert haven, staying only a few feet from the victims while he awaited the preliminary investigation. Attila Ban was already inside his hiding place when the first police officers arrived at the Lambert Avenue apartment. He cut open the lower lining of the hollow base of the sofa bed where Tibor's body had been placed with a knife out of fear of being arrested. He could lie horizontally inside the frame's empty space. Ban carried multiple bottles of water and his phone, which he kept off. The suspect is said to have heard every word said by the forensic experts working directly above him for the next 2 days, as they documented his friend's body. The investigation momentarily slowed down on the evening of August 12. Only one patrol officer remained at the apartment's entrance after the main team of experts departed. For the first time in 48 hours, Ban took advantage of the silence to crawl out of the bed frame. Case files indicate that he attempted suicide during these hours. In the hopes that the electric current would kill him, Attila filled the bathtub with water and submerged a plugged-in hairdryer. But the electrical pan circuit breakers instantly cut off the device's power. After the attempt with the hairdryer failed, Attila cut himself several times superficially with a pair of scissors. When Ban heard the next group of forensic experts coming back through the stairwell, he became alarmed and hurried back into the bedroom. But he was unable to carefully close the lining behind him this time. Police officers saw something strange as soon as they walked into the room. A heavy nightstand had been used to block the bedroom door from the inside, something that wasn't there when the inspection was conducted. Officers barged into the apartment when they realized someone was inside. Attila Ban was discovered in a semi-conscious state on the bed. At last, the mystery surrounding his disappearance was resolved. The entire time, the criminal had been right under the investigator's nose, as he was hiding in plain sight while Attila Ban was missing and the investigation was ongoing. On July 9, 2012, Attila Ban's trial got underway. He admitted in court that he had contributed to his co-workers' deaths, but he maintained that he had been experiencing a brief mental illness. The defense claimed that Ban had not premeditated the crime and that his actions were the result of an abrupt emotional breakdown brought on by stress about his friend's impending departure and alcohol. All he could recall, he said, was waking up the following morning and discovering himself surrounded by blood close to the dead bodies. The prosecution's evidence, however, presented an entirely different picture. The methodical cleaning of Tibor's body and the pattern of Alice's injury suggested that the perpetrator had retained complete control over his actions. The discovery of biological traces from both men on Alice's body was one of the main arguments supporting the theory that jealousy had been a major factor in the conflict. The insanity claim was dismissed by the jury. After being found guilty of the double crime, Attila Ban was given a life sentence with a minimum of 26 years before being eligible for parole. In court, Tibor Vass's mother said that she had trusted Attila to keep her son safe. The tragedy profoundly affected the Risen Blue Hotel staff community. One of the most startling incidents in London police history is the tale of the employee of the year who hid inside his victim's bed frame for 2 days. Despite the eventual return of the Lambert Avenue apartment to its owners, the story remains unresolved for the victims' families.